Hello and welcome to my review of Deadpool. This is a game made by High Moon Studios who spent the last 3 years playing with their Transformers.
Now let's roll out!
Now the story of the game is mainly about how Deadpool wants to make his own game and how he wants to make it his way. The game is littered with scenes where Deadpool makes a phone call to the developers asking them to change something, and mostly it's related to them cutting corners to save money and then producing something strange, which are quite amusing scenes actually. The actual story is about Mr. Sinister, who's a villain in Marvel, cloning something and planning something that isn't really explained. Well, the cloning is explained by the fact that you run into the same enemy throughout the game, and, well, not one enemy, but different types of enemies that are all identical.
Love old 8-bit games! Yeah, we do too. This game isn't old.
Or 8-bit moron.
Speaking of looking identical, the visual style is actually quite good. They do great coloring, they do nice environments, they do platforming pieces that are actually good. They don't make you jump off ledges that have no recipient on the other side of the chasm. It comes down to corridors and big fight arenas, and the illusion that these are not just corridors connecting different arenas is disguised very well.
Ooh, how exciting! This is great! Here goes it! Enough already!
On the mechanical side is really where this thing falls apart. The combat is all about building combos and scoring Deadpool points. And the combos are built by using light and heavy attacks, and usually you don't notice the difference between the attacks, except for some of the heavy attacks punch your enemies into the air and the light attacks can keep them floating like some sort of piñata. One aspect I don't like is a lock-on function, because you have to hold down the trigger to lock onto an enemy, but as soon as you touch the right stick, you break the lock-on, and then you have to target the enemy again, which is really difficult when you keep spinning around and trying to dodge incoming attacks, or try to hit different enemies, or even try to move without having the camera facing the wall behind you. Now, one feature of the mechanics that is actually quite nice is the voices in Deadpool's head. They are used as tutorials, and they give you directions, instead of having arrows pointing to certain doors or big boxes of text telling you go left, then right, then up, then sideways. The camera, as I mentioned, is really awful. When you're platforming, it's usually easy because you can adjust the camera when you need to, and you don't have to actually do it while focusing on pressing the right buttons and making sure that you don't run off the edge of the map. In combat, however, the camera acts like it's got a life of its own. Apart from your light attacks, heavy attacks, and your guns, you can also do sneak attacks. These are just ways of showing off how whimsy Deadpool is by doing an elaborate animation showing him decapitating, stabbing, or generally smashing an enemy. And usually the first sneak attack alerts everybody else to your presence, which makes it kind of redundant. Now, the dodge move is the key holding this whole combat system together, because all enemies that attack you can usually be countered by the dodge. All the boss fights are focused around dodging their attacks or countering their attacks in order to make them vulnerable to be attacked.
Darn near killed him!
Now, all in all, this game actually looks and sounds better than it plays. It should have been a movie, to be honest. As I mentioned, the boss fights are all the same. You have different B, C, and D level Marvel enemies that are drawn from the comics that nobody's ever heard of, and they don't really get much of a backstory other than they want to kill you. They do have a good thing going with the humor in this game, and that's mainly because they actually hired a writer from Marvel to write the story. Too bad they couldn't get a decent programmer to do the combat, or the camera. Another feature I quite enjoy is actually how they introduce support cast, because you get visits from different X-Men and some other very rarely seen Marvel characters, and every time you meet one, you can press the A button and get a little introduction into who they are and how they're connected to Deadpool in some way. Now, I know it's unfair to compare Deadpool to the Arkham Batman games, but Essentially, this is trying to be Batman with more of the humor, but it fails to be the essential Batman experience.
Lo behold!
#1 fangirl is hot!
Now, this is just my opinion. Yours may differ.
Damn it, Wade!